Yeah. Hi, everyone. By way of introduction, my name is Thomas. I'm the business development lead for Deal Prep, which is a platform that maybe some of you are familiar with already, but essentially we're a legal support platform for small businesses, entrepreneurs, startups, and really anybody looking for legal support for their contract templates and contract learning. So the reason why we're here today is because everybody in this room has access to our platform. They have unlimited access to all of the various tools that we have, and you can contact us via anything on the platform as well. But today, what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about founders agreements. So we're going to kind of treat this as a fireside chat, and we've been doing this a bit through COVID, but obviously we don't have a couch and we don't really have the opportunity for people to walk up to a mic and things like that. So we're going to try to keep this as fireside chat as possible. But in terms of just kind of agenda-wise, we're going to go over a few just presentation items, and then we'll open up the room for any questions that anybody has, and then we'll jump into a bit of an onboarding session to show you around the platform itself and actually how to get access to it. So with that being said, I'll just introduce Adam, Adam, I'll let you introduce yourself before we get started.
Sure, sounds good. Thanks, Thomas. So my name is Adam. I'm a content specialist here at Clawsound, and I am also a lawyer with Cobalt Lawyers, which is the sister law firm with Clawsound. A bit of a serial entrepreneur myself, and hopefully our little chat today will provide you some valuable information that you can use.
Awesome, thanks, Adam. And so I just wanted to also introduce Raja, who is in the chat as well. So as we're presenting, we're expecting some questions. And if you're looking to get those questions answered during the presentation, feel free to just drop them in the chat, and you can send them to everyone using the Zoom function. And then Raja from our team will also be answering them in there, unless you specifically want them to be answered during the presentation itself. Okay. So yeah, I think without further ado, Adam, I think I'll just start us off by asking, so what's so important about founders agreements, and what are they and why should we care about them?
Yeah, so founders agreements, I mean, it's something that has come along in the past, I guess, couple of years. It's become a lot more popular, especially when a lot of the new startups and businesses are coming around. And the problem here is having to set up a full legal entity and framework is, as some of you probably already know, is quite expensive. Lawyers are expensive and hard to access, and but at the same time, you're wondering, well, should I be incorporating? How do I decide who gets what, who owns what happens to my IP? How much is someone giving into the company, and how do I calculate that out and understand how that all then plays into the initial company formation and the ownership of the company at the end of the day, especially when you have multiple founders. So those are kind of the top questions that come about when someone is starting up the business and not understanding, well, how do I set up this legal infrastructure? And the founders agreement is a really good document to start off with. It's essentially a blueprint for your legal infrastructure, which really does then play in to all the different aspects of your business, the IP, whatever you're developing, the product that you're developing, the service you're providing. And then at the end of the day, it sets out a great fundamental base for when you start looking for your first financing, investors, etc. Those like to see that you've started to think about these things early on in your company. So it's a really good document to help set out in writing exactly how you'd like to set up your business.
Thanks, Adam. And yeah, I think we'll probably touch on this later on, but it's also something that I'm sure in your professional experience you've noticed that a lot of folks don't even worry about the agreement at the beginning, and this is something that they learn about later on when things are moving fast and they've got a team going. And so that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everyone's focused on the vision of the company, the cool stuff that they're developing. It's hard to really set back and just say, oh, okay, let's talk about legal. No one has ever said that in their lives. And especially when it comes to starting out the company, it's exciting. Like you have these awesome ideas going through your head. You just want to put it in play. You want to start testing it in the market. You want to see what the market says. You want to get sales, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No one ever really stops to think, okay, how about who gets what shares? It's kind of like a one meeting thing, and everyone kind of just leaves it alone. Let's continue on with the cool stuff we're doing. So, yeah, definitely something that gets overlooked, and then sometimes it does come back to bite you further down the road.
Awesome. So I think we can kind of just jump into the meat of this presentation. So I'll ask, so what are the top three clauses that you think receive the most consideration when dealing with founders agreements?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I could actually do is maybe I'll share my screen quickly and kind of show you um, the document itself, and usually what I have in I think you guys can see my screen right now.
Yep.
So
For everyone who's not familiar with what we're looking at, Adam's just pulling up the founders agreement from Deal Prep's platform that everybody has access to, and we're going to kind of use this as a way to guide you through the presentation, is also a way for you to see what you have access to.
yeah, so I mean, the top three things, and as I mentioned, like every single entrepreneur, especially when it's technology based and even not technology based, anything from a design, someone's designing certain products, when it comes to even grandma's recipe on a special sauce or a brownie, even that is contemplated as well as like what happens to the IP. So one of the big things is what happens when you're going to come in with an idea, you've set it out, you have a business plan, you've started creating your MVPs, you started creating all these cool prototypes, even maybe even 3D printing prototypes. All of that stuff is IP. All of that stuff is the value of your company. And it's something that you want to protect. You want to make sure that it's really clear how all of that is going to be owned by the company. And if it's not being owned by the company, and a particular founder says, I'm going to hold on to this and I'm going to maybe license it to the company as it grows because it's super valuable to me. I personally put a lot of research in it or something like that. That is uh, a lot of these considerations. And then at the same time, you want to understand, how am I going to protect it? A question I get a lot is, hey, I want to use offshore individuals to help me develop the product. I got designers over in India, in Europe, in China, and or I've got developers over there. How do I protect my IP? That's a hard question, and especially if you want to bring them in as a founder potentially because they're contributing so much to your company. You're wondering, man, couldn't they just run and take my idea with them? And the problem is yeah, that is the case, but having it in writing at the very least is something that you can do to set yourself up to help protect that IP. So you'll see that these type of clauses are always negotiated, always included in a founder's agreement. It sets out the ownership itself. As I mentioned, are you going to transfer that IP? Is grandma going to hold on to her special sauce recipe and just let you guys use it, for example? Or are you going to ask her, can you please give us and let the company own the IP for that, so that as we develop and create products or create services, we can always use it without anyone taking claim down the road saying, hey, by the way, that's mine. You owe me 10% of everything every single time. So IP, very important, something that we always see in these founder type agreements, especially when it comes to anything technology. Pretty much anything can be IP at the end of the day. Another one, and everyone always kind of looks at this and goes, who gets what? How do I decide? Hey, is it 50-50? I mean, I've got another founder. That's fair, right? And the answer is not always. I mean, we've always hit a situation, even myself, when I started my first few companies, is there are some founders who are like, I'm contributing so darn much that I feel like I should have more. You have a For example, you already have a full-time job. I've risked my full-time job, and now I'm here doing this full-time. And with that, it gets a little bit murky as to whether the 50-50 is still fair at that point. So that's one thing that usually is included in a founder's agreement is, okay, you get this percentage, you get that percentage. Um, let's figure out the different factors. Let's have it in writing at least. Albeit a lot of these aren't always necessarily legally binding, but at the same time, if you write it down and you have it in an agreement, it's helpful, it's useful. So when you do set up a the incorporation, for example, when you do set up all your legal foundation, it's a document you can refer to. It's something that you don't have to suddenly go, we're going to a meeting again, let's talk about it. What did we say? It's all in here, and you still can sign it off. It's like a letter offer. It doesn't necessarily mean you've got the employment, but you can still point to it. Once you do get your employment, you can always go to your employer and say, well, your letter offer said this. How is this fair? Type of thing. So same with the collaboration agreement. It's not always binding. Some things might be binding. You can always agree to say, okay, this one thing, I really want to make sure that's binding, for example. So definitely a clause that causes a lot of not necessarily dispute, but more so a discussion that is important to always have, for example.
Right. Adam, I just want to jump in here and give a comment on that. Yeah, so obviously this is, whenever I look at this document, whenever I interact with the users on a platform, I always see that this is one of the bottlenecks to them actually really solidifying on this contract. And I think it's important to remember that really the nature of this agreement is a consolidation of points that you want to revisit in the future as well, right? I mean, these are items that you want to kind of just get down your thoughts on paper and kind of solidify on something. But just really get down the points that matter to you most right now, and then take it further in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the big cool things is getting it down now and in the future, having that in place. One of the big ones is a stock option plan. We've all thought about, okay, how am I going to incentivize that cool developer, that designer, or that specialized individual to come in and work for us? Well, we're going to have to give them stock options, right? So, but the thing is how do you establish that? That's hard to really figure out. And in part of the agreement, and as you can see, we really do explain a lot about how they work, but investors really like to see that you've thought about this from the get-go and setting up your stock option plan right at the front. So sometimes we see 10 to 20% and saying, okay, we're going to reserve this, guys. This is going to be for the main stars that are coming in on the team, and we're going to incentivize them. And the investor goes, you guys really have thought this out. And what I love is now that when I invest and I get my shares, you're not going to suddenly bring in an option plan after the fact and dilute me. So definitely a good move to start thinking about some of these things and having that basis started already. Vesting, a big one. That's a bit of a complicated one that we don't necessarily have to go over, but it's a great way to incentivize founders to stay. And it also kind of, the one question is, if it goes 50-50 and a person leaves, what happens to that 50%? Is that it? Like, that means they have it. So am I stuck with that person? And this is how vesting helps, is not necessarily. If they stay for only 1 month, they may only get a portion of that 50%. If they stay for 1 year, they might, over 3 years, they might get only a third of that 50% that they wanted. So this is really helpful in being like, okay, if you want to stay committed, you've got to stick with us for 3 years. You don't have to, if you leave earlier than that, you're not going to get everything that was promised to you. So that's a very often discussed clause as well. And as I was kind of mentioning earlier, is the contribution is what are you putting in? Is it sweat equity? Is it, are you, and then is it opportunity cost as well? For example, if someone's leaving a 6-digit professional job, that's sometimes considered as contribution, because at the end of the day, they're risking their life to do this. They should be compensated accordingly. So those are a few things that are often considered, especially also if someone is bringing in their IP. So if they're bringing in their designs, their programs, you will want to be properly compensated for that as well. So those are kind of the top three there. IP, who gets what, and how much is someone putting in is always kind of the top three things that have been asked, or our clients always kind of really get bottlenecked at, because those are tough questions, especially with it goes to the core of the company, and then it also goes to the core of each individual as well. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. So everybody, I know we kind of just went over a whole bunch of like legal concepts and things like that. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or speak up now if you'd like. But now I think what we'll do, Adam, is I wouldn't mind just kind of taking it back a step and kind of going about more of a personal experience, because Adam mentioned it before, but Adam is also I believe a two-time founder as well. He's got a couple startups under his belt, and now obviously working in the commercial law space. Yeah, I'd kind of just like to take this back and ask you, so based on experience dealing with founders agreements, what is the best advice for founders, and what should they watch out for in general?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I founded a company called Acto, ACTO, about something like 2013, 2014. And funny enough, I actually dropped out of law school to do it. We were we were doing really well with everything that we were doing, and we got our first financing in 2014. And so that kind of encouraged me to get out of law school and say, hey, this is going to be a great opportunity. And a lot, what got me was that I was on this career path that promised success and all this stuff. And all of a sudden I was kind of just thinking, I'm throwing it away, and I'm just going to focus on this cool project, and I'm working with these awesome people. And I just dove in head first and didn't really think about all of the repercussions that might come down the road. You'd think I would know, but law school teaches you nothing. But it's, I kind of wished I had thought about all of this fundamental stuff before really going ahead and going forward with everything. The company is doing absolutely well, and no bridges have been burnt. And in fact, I work with them closely on the Cobalt Lawyer side still. But we had a really large founding team. We had, I believe, 6 individuals to start. And as you guys know, that is way too many. You've got basically 6 A personalities. Imagine getting in a room with them, having no support staff, and asking each other to be like, have you done this? Have you done that? Why isn't this done? Why isn't this done? There's, everyone's kind of on a high level, being like I'm the visionary on every single aspect. And and also, one of the big things about a large founding team is investors absolutely do not like that. Investors hate big teams, especially because when they know they invest, first off, all the founders are going to have shareholdings. So it'd be really difficult to deal with bringing in an investor and them realizing I have to deal with 6 other shareholders with a company that's not even really, growing quite yet. Secondly, if things go really, really well, investors then realize that they have to make these founders whole, whether they have to buy them out, whether they have to offer salaries that make sense for them. They don't like having to have all of that overhead cost. So knowing all of that, I did not realize how quickly our founders would drop off. Within a year, I think we lost 2 founders. They went back to their professional jobs. As you know, like founders are typically, and everyone in this room are typically very successful people, people who are, on some sort of path and ambition. So there'll always be something that will uh, present themselves as an opportunity. And we had founders who ended up back going to Google, going back to Amazon, etc. And as that happened, uh, who gets what started to get really murky. And the percentages and having all of that stuff got really murky. And by the time we were at the end of it, I believe we only had about 3 founders left. I actually had left in about 2017. And that was when you realize, oh crap, I'm exiting, but I barely know how my percentages work or my shareholdings work. I don't know how much I'm going to get out of this. I don't understand whether I have any IP left in the company. And it's a little bit scary because you just spent 3-4 years of your life doing this and you don't know if you're going to get anything out of it. Luckily for me, my founders are my good friends as well, and I know the old adage, don't do business with family and friends, but luckily I had very well level-headed founders and friends, so it was a bit of an anomaly there. But it was difficult because we did have some founders who were very hard-headed and a little bit abrasive. And so it was a little bit of a fight at that point. Is like, you didn't earn that, you didn't do this. And not having that all in paper from the get-go, not establishing the really basic of how is this all going to come together, who gets what. I kind of wished I had that. I do think sometimes that perhaps I got a little bit shortchanged, but that was of my own doing, of not making sure that I knew exactly what to do from the get, or exactly what I was going to get out of this, and pushing to have it in writing, for example. So exiting out of it, I did luckily still was able to negotiate a good situation, and I was able to, burn no bridges, and I'm still very good friends with the founders over at Acto. But there was a lot of headache, and it was it worth the 3-4 years? Absolutely. The experience absolutely was great. But sometimes I think back and I go, I could have done this a different way. I feel like I got devalued in the company in some ways as well. So at the end of the day, though, everything's good and groovy. I still work with them very closely. But yeah, that's kind of one of the big things, is understanding that from the get-go, a lot of the decision making can be done, can be written down, and it'll save a lot of headache. You're working with people who are going to be, um, they're going to want to get the best out of everything, including for themselves. So you'll want to make sure everyone has a good understanding of each other and what this business and company is going to be. And founders agreement really helps to set that out.
Awesome. Yeah, it's I mean, it sounds like for your experience, it was one of those items where it was just like there was so much going on, all the time, and there was so much excitement to push something forward and be like get this brand out there and like really push forward into your market. And so that agreement maybe just kind of took a side
Yeah,
second.
yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
mean,
And if you see
yes,
a lot, yeah, I mean, if you see a lot of opportunity in what you're doing, it's so valuable because it's not even just your founders, it's the investors that come in too. You have to worry about them too, because when they come in, they're looking at what value you've created. And if they think they're able to create even more value, don't be don't be surprised if they decide we're going to bring in our own people. We're going to bring in people to replace you. And if you haven't established exactly a deal for your own self, um, it's very possible that you realize, holy crap, this company is going to take off. And or 4 years down the road, after the company has taken off, you're like, oh darn it, So there are those situations that do happen, and protecting yourself and understanding how to keep a hold on everything and uh, taking the right steps can really help to get the best for yourself as well. And it's a pretty important step. So yeah.
Cool. There's actually just another question that I had off top now actually. So that was kind of like on the entrepreneurial side and the entrepreneurial experience that you've had. But then when you actually started making your way into legal,
Mm.
is there, because I know that you handle agreements galore, but is there like um, a common theme or a common question that you see from a lot of the folks that you work with regarding some of their concerns for founders agreements? Like, is there a commonality between all of these different pieces?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, one of the things, the reason why I went back to legal is after this experience was like, oh man, like I could really help, you know, make a little bit of a difference. All the rest of the lawyers are, looking for big bucks on Bay Street, and I'm thinking, well, maybe it's something that I can help provide accessibility to. And one of the biggest things that I always kind of remember from my experience and why I got back into legal is going through those darn shareholders agreements when I was early on, and these just stacks of paper where I absolutely did not understand any of it at the time, um, was so difficult to navigate. And uh, navigating, and I'm sure everyone here is kind of like, oh my gosh, there's so many different concepts to think about. That is the commonality here is like how does any of this flow through into my actual corporate documents, for example? How does this even affect the business at the end of the day? Who cares about the IP? I'm just going to create something and sell it. Like the IP will speak for itself. They'll know I own it, type of thing. And that's not always the case. And it's, for me, a common thing is how what happens on at the exit, at the end of the day. What happens when I leave the company? Um, because a lot of these documents, what they get you to start thinking about is the future. And that's one big thing that I learned through all of this is what happens to IP when we get our first investor or someone buys us out? What happens to our shares? What happens to me at the end of the day? So yeah, I think the one common thing is I get a lot of these future questions from a lot of entrepreneurs who go, wait, but what happens when someone comes in on this, or what happens on the option plan if they don't buy it out? It's a lot of future questions that I get from entrepreneurs.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about somebody's pride and joy. Hopefully, their pride and
Yeah.
joy. It's something that they're really invested in. So I think now that we're at 10:30, maybe I can just open the room to anyone who has questions. Feel free to speak up, turn on your mic, turn on your video. Adam and I would be more than happy to answer. So maybe let's just leave that open now.
I do have a question. So
Oh,
it's
Chris?
only if okay, so if you have founders, right? Like other founders, which I don't, but like do I still need to have intellectual property like documents and all that stuff for all my products and all that? Would
Um,
this be helpful?
yeah, so I mean that's a good question. Sole founders, typically at the beginning, if it's just a single person and there's no other individuals involved,
Yeah.
etc., a lot of the time, and you're operating under a company or sole proprietorship or something like that, a lot of the time it's quite okay to just continue on doing what you're doing. But I would highly start thinking about figuring out which IP is what and what you're contributing. Because once you do bring other people in, those other
Yeah.
people are going to start contributing IP. And that happens often. Even just an employee or a contractor, they're going to come in and start contributing to your IP, whether it's a design or whether it's a software or a product. If they just say, here's a feature, it's awesome, they're going to be like, by the way, I thought of that, therefore my IP, right?
Oh, that's true.
And so you have to be careful as to what to do there. And for you personally, eventually in the future, an investor is going to come in and go, who owns this IP? Whose is this, right? And you're going to say, I had a couple contractors. So for example, if you brought in one contractor or two contractor, typically a contractor agreement will have some sort of IP clause that says anything you do for me is the company's or mine, for example. So IP, right now, there might not necessarily be a strong document that, unless if you are incorporated, the two ways that you can do it is anything before incorporation. I'm signing this document saying that was related to the product or service. I'm signing this document saying I am transferring it into the company. And then a lot of the time, founders are contractors of the company. That's actually a very common way of doing it. And in that contractor agreement, it will have an ongoing IP assignment to the company, unless you want to exclude something, which then you can write very carefully saying, if you own a copyright, patent, trademark, you can say, I exclude this, although it's being used in the services, I'm excluding this. It still belongs to me, no one else, not even the company. So you can do that too. But I am giving a license for the company to use it perpetually or something like that.
Okay.
So those are kind of the ways to handle IP in early stages. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I have a quick question if you've got time.
Omar, yes, what's up?
So let's just say, okay, I'm going to give you an example. So for example, let's just say you're starting a company with a friend and you've split it 50-50 and, you know, you're a year in or whatnot. And let's just say, for example, an investor comes in and he wants 25% of the company. So let's just say the company's made up of 100,000 shares of 100% of the company. So does that mean the company is now worth 125,000 shares because your shares aren't diluted right away? Is that correct?
So when an investor comes in, it all depends on the structure that you want to bring the investor in on. So for this example, we'll keep it simple and just have it a straight up equity raise, then it would be an issuance from the company. So they started off with a base of 100K. So that would be split 50-50. So you have 50K one founder, 50K another founder. And then you want to bring in another investor who wants 25% of all shares. So I don't know the exact amount right now, but the corporation would issue, I don't know, 30, 40K. I'm a lawyer. I don't do math. I'm terrible at it. But yeah, so yeah, then the company would then have 130 odd shares, 140 odd shares for that 25%. So yeah, the share base would increase essentially, if that's your question.
Oh yeah, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions? Oh, I think Raja may have just dropped a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that was an answer.
Yeah, so a couple more answers there as well. And yeah, so he does make a couple good points. And something to think about when it comes down to when you actually are looking to transfer IP. There's tax implications too that you'll have to consider. But we won't get to the boring stuff, tax and accounting. Just kidding.
So if nobody has any more questions, Adam's still going to be here as well. So what I'll do is I'm just going to start kind of pushing through the onboarding of Deal Prep. And then while I'm doing that, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or send them to Adam specifically or Raja specifically. Or to be completely honest, you could just kind of stop me and then we could just have a question answered for the entire group altogether. So I'm just going to share my screen now. And Adam, maybe you can let me know if it works. Can you see my screen?
Starting up. Yep, there it goes. Good to go.
Awesome. All right, everyone. So Adam was showing this before, but our lander is dealprep.co. So this is where you would go to access the platform, to sign up for the platform, to access a whole bunch of different materials that we've got hosted. But you can see that really we're business contracts made simple. So kind of tying it back to what Adam was using before for his presentation of running through that contract. We've designed this platform so that contract templates are no longer just something you look at, you download, you fill in with your own stuff, and then you take it to your lawyer. We're trying to improve the contract literacy in small businesses and entrepreneurs. You know, we're trying to help people learn more about their contracts and get people more interested in the topics, because this is, as Adam was mentioning, something that's really important for you to start up your business with. So first things first, to sign up for the platform, we ask that you click here. And then when you get to sign up, you'll see that you get this page. But because all you folks are with Leap Junction, just click here to member of one of our customer organizations. And then in here, you'll get the member registration. So in this member registration, you just need to drop in your name, your email address, and the organizational partner name, in this case being Leap Junction. The reason we ask for this is because all of these requests get sent in to us, and then we manually create the accounts. So when you send this in to us, we will manually create an account and have it associated to the Leap Junction account. And typically turnaround time is, if you submit your request to us, we will have your account set up in the next few hours, as long as it's within the business day. So jumping back here. So back at our lander, once you've actually got your account set up and everything, you submitted your request, our team has created it, you'll receive 2 emails in your inbox. Both emails are related to onboarding materials, essentially kind of just going over all the various tools that you have, but also most importantly, your login credentials. So you're gonna wanna make sure to check your inbox for your login credentials. If it doesn't pop up immediately in your inbox, it might be in your promotions. We get that issue every once in a while. But then once you've got your login credentials, all you need to do is navigate to documents up here. And then once you hit documents, you'll get into our ClawSound Business Law Learning Library. So I know, kind of confusing that we've got those 2 different names, DealPrep and ClawSound. ClawSound is the technology side to DealPrep. DealPrep is more of the training side. So you get redirected to the ClawSound page here. You'll see that on this page, you've got a search bar, and you've also got these various pillars, what we call as pillars. So these are various topics that we find that a lot of startup founders are interested in, that being information, commercial activities, kind of just want to consolidate into their various groups. And then let's say we click into commercial activities here. You know, actually, I think I will log in with an end user account, and hopefully, there we go. Okay, so now I'm signed in as an end user account, so this will look exactly the way that you see. So let's say I click on commercial activities, and when I jump in here, you'll see that commercial activities now has 60 contracts associated with this framework. So you can scroll down and you can see all the various contracts that we have available to you, as well as all of the contracts available to you in the other frameworks as well. So I'll mention now that this list is constantly growing. We've got a content team who's just putting out more and more contracts, more and more knowledge materials, and essentially just taking these, editing them, making them beautiful and ready for your use. So let's say I'm in commercial activities right now, and I just want to look at a basic NDA, for example. So I'm looking at confidentiality here, and I find this basic NDA. You'll notice that on the right side, we have these little stars. So this one, as I hover over it, it'll say highly tagged. This refers to the document being full of knowledge material. That being, it'll make a little more sense later on, but that being full of legal knowledge that we've associated to the various concepts within this contract. Then you'll also find some contracts here that only say mostly tagged. Mostly tagged refers to, essentially what that means is we are still building the legal knowledge for this contract. I'll get into this a little more later on, but folks like you, people who use our platform, will actually be helping to build this platform with your questions and with our answers, which aid in us being able to tag these contracts. So as I open up this basic NDA, you can see that it pulls up the actual platform itself. And so the platform itself, I know it's a bit to look at right now because it's a contract by nature. But you can see that our contracts, we start off with a little bit of a disclaimer here, talking about the nature of this contract, that being that it is for educational purposes. and then you'll get the contract itself. So I'm not going to go too in depth on this just because I know that Adam presented it, but first thing I want to show is because a lot of these contracts aren't as short as this basic NDA, and you're getting pages after pages, you're going to want a bit of an overview, right? So if you click on contract over here and you click on overview, an overview will pop up on the right side, and it'll be laid out with about this contract, what is this document, when would I use it, who signs it, what are the core elements. This kind of gives you an icebreaker as to what to expect when going through this contract, and how you want to approach it. After that, you'll notice that our contracts all have these fillable fields. So you can see that this is the title of the contract, basic non-disclosure agreement. Well, if I click into company name, and let's say my company's name is Thomas, odd name for a company, but let's say my company's name is Thomas and I drop it in there, you can see that it populates throughout the various contract name fields. So it promotes speedy drafting. And now we just get rid of that. This goes throughout the contract itself, all the fillable fields. You'll notice that there are some fields in some of our contracts that are not fillable like this, just because they require context and they require you to truly understand the meaning of the clause and actually dig in. Then the valuable part to all of this is the knowledge associated. So as I was mentioning before with the mostly tagged and the highly tagged, is that we want to take this to the point where it's not just a regular old contract. We want to give people the ability to understand more about this. So you can see these little buttons above every single one of these clauses. And so if I click on something like definition of confidential information, the same knowledge tab will pop up, the same as the overview, except it'll be populated with the knowledge that our team has developed with the help of our affiliate lawyers, with the help of our internal team, with the help of folks like you who are asking questions to us. So over here, you can see that these are all various knowledge pointers that are all written out in layman's language or layman's terms that essentially give breakdowns as to what this clause even means. So we know that this language is difficult. You know, we know that a lot of these contracts are only for folks who have been to law school or who have 10 ventures under their belt. So what we want to do is we want to create knowledge that is applicable to everybody. So as you scroll through here, you'll notice that there's very formulaic questions, such as like, what is a so-and-so clause, such as these. But then there's also less formulaic ones, such as how can I alter the definition of blah, 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 blah. A pretty particular question, right? So naturally, our team did not come up with this question on our own. This was actually submitted by one of our members, one of our users. So in terms of how this actually got here, well, somebody asked us a question, we provided an answer. We scrubbed it to make sure that it was specifically just as a template, and then dropped it back in here for other entrepreneurs and other founders to benefit from. We're under the idea that if one founder has a question, there's a good chance that 50 others will have that same question sometime in the future. All right, so now how do you ask questions, and how do you, let's say you're going through one of these clauses and you have no idea what obligations of receiving party means, and you're looking for a little more knowledge about that. Well, we offer the ability to use our knowledge help desk, and our knowledge help desk is a human team. It's a human services team where we've got our content team standing by. They're the ones who are building out all these contracts and so on. But they're here to answer your questions as well. So let's say you're confused about one of these clauses. What you can do is you can click on this button over here to Knowledge Help Desk, or you can click on this chatbot here. But I think for the sake of this, I'll just pull up this Knowledge Help Desk. Once you click on that, it'll take you to our form. And this form here allows you to ask questions regarding any of the concepts, any of the contracts, any other clauses on our platform. Mind you, these questions are not designed to be personal ones. You know, we're not looking for your company's life story, and not because we don't care, but because we can't answer those questions, right? We're an educational platform. So all the questions that we answer are always educational ones, are always concept-based, and are always based on the idea of learning the language. So all you would need to do here is drop in your first name, your email, partner organization, in this case would be Leap Junction, and your question. You know, there probably should be a parentheses S in here because you can ask as many questions as you like. That's kind of one of the perks about being one of the Leap Junction members, is that you can ask as many questions as you like. The way that these work is when you submit a question, that being a question in this box or a specific request for a contract, and any additional contracts. Whenever you submit that to us, our team will put a 2-day timer on that, and it'll jump in our queue, and then our team will get to an answer for you and then submit it to you directly via email to create a dialogue between you and us. And then from there, you could take the conversation further, get further clarification, but we ask that everybody goes through the knowledge help desk over here. Once these questions are answered, they also end up back in our platform to help out other founders on. So that kind of goes over kind of a high level of all these items. I don't want to take up too much time because I see it's 10:50, but one of the other items I want to show is, let me just go back here. If you click on learning from the dealprep.co lander, you'll see that we have a little button regarding our events. So our team hosts events every single month. In fact, because you're members, you have access to all of our events. We host public ones through the City of Toronto as our official training sponsor, but then we also host members only events. And so we host 2 per month, 1 public, 1 private. But if you just click on check out our events here, it'll take you to our Eventbrite. And on our Eventbrite, one wants to open it. But it'll take you to our Eventbrite where you can visit any of the workshops and see what we've got coming up. You know, we've got things like ESOPs, consulting agreements, shareholders agreements, NDAs. And these are always free to join. So feel free to join as many as you'd like. They're really interactive. You know, we implement negotiation training in it. We implement a little bit of live negotiation, question asking. You also get one-to-ones with our affiliate lawyers. And yeah, so maybe here, just with the time left, I'll ask if anybody has any questions. And I saw the chat move a little bit, so I'm gonna see if I can pull that up here. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to just speak aloud. Oh, I see that that was David and Raja. Okay, so that one looks like it was answered.
Hey, Thomas.
Yes.
Would you mind jumping back into the platform really quick and just giving us a little bit of an overview of some of the types of contracts that we might find? Just because of the diversity of this group, we're probably not all going to need NDAs, but I know there's some various other contracts that this crew needs.
Certainly. So let's jump back here to dealprep.co, and I'll take us kind of from the initial journey. So clicking on documents over here, once we get up to our actual frameworks page, we've got a whole bunch of contracts that everybody saw before, but one of the ones that I always direct people to first is our startup package. So if you don't really know what you're looking for, if you kind of have a little bit of an idea and you just need a little bit of a point in the right direction, I would always suggest checking out our startup package. And so I'll open this in a new tab here. And so you can see that this is our startup documents package page, and this is just a collection of various contracts that we suggest a lot of startup founders have a look at. Our reasoning for this is that we're constantly monitoring which contracts are doing the best on our platform, and these are the ones that a lot of folks are interested in. So things like founders agreements, shareholders agreements, employment agreements, privacy policies. You know, these are the ones that we point folks towards in the when they first land on our platform. So this being here, just kind of the startup package. Of course, we have plenty more. If I open up this again, you can see that as I scroll down, as we were mentioning, we've got confidentiality stuff. We've got content licensing agreements. We've got distribution agreements. We've even got things such as event photography agreements. And then going on what Adam was talking about earlier, we've got agreements related to intellectual property specifically, so things like IP transfer. And maybe I'll go up and choose a different framework here. Let's say company formation. You can see that we've also got things that are a little further down the line, such as like notice of shareholders meetings and bylaws and things like that. So these are all really important agreements. And Kelsey, maybe were there any in particular that you wanted to have a look at, or that anybody was interested in?
Not particularly. I just wanted them to see the diversity of contracts of things like event photography all the way to, you know, I saw some financing documents in there. And I think, especially for those of you that are in the sole proprietorship or on the cusp of registration, some of these documents, you might not be there yet, but this platform still has a lot of documents that are there for you. So especially the dispute resolution ones, no one likes to plan for that, but that might be a good tab to jump into just in case something ever comes up in your business. Those documents can be really helpful for you.
Definitely. And actually, just as I clicked over HR, this is something I know Adam touched on a little bit in terms of bringing on your first employees or your first contractors. We've got contractor agreements specific to industries as well as employment agreements as well. So if I hop into dispute resolution, you can see that we've got things like mediation agreements, we've got releases, we've got things like demand letters. And you know what, I think this is also a good point for me to mention that as we were going over the knowledge help desk earlier, that's a way for you to ask us for agreements as well, right? So if I go back here, you can see that what kind of contract are you looking for? Let's say you're scrolling through this platform and you're not sure what you're looking for, you're not sure what any of these mean, but you have just a general idea of what the purpose of this agreement would be, of what this document would be. Feel free to just drop it into this box over here. Let us know what the idea is, what you're trying to achieve, and then our team lives and breathes this platform. So they will be able to direct you to contracts. You know what, if it's not even on the platform here, if we don't have it live, there's a good chance that we've just kind of got it in our editing queue right now, and that it's just being updated with new information, or it's being taken back to add in more knowledge. So if you just ask us, our team will be able to source these documents for you as well and get them back up on the platform.
I just want to make a comment about how incredibly valuable that is, that there's this repository of legal documents, and also if you can't find one, you can ask to have it, is not a service that you are going to have for the rest of your lives. Please take advantage of it.
Yeah, and you know, and just thinking about it as well, one of the items that I want to mention is just looking back at this NDA. You know, this platform is always here. You know, so you can consult as many documents as you like, download as many as you like, play around with them, learn as much as you like. You know, we've got a lot of folks who are just jumping into our platform simply because they want to learn more about a topic. You know, obviously there's certain degrees of how much legal you're going to have to do throughout your business, and typically at the first stages, you know, I can't imagine that there's a whole lot. So there's a lot of folks who come in here and they're just like, you know what, I'm starting to see some questions relating to privacy if I've got a SaaS business. You know, let's say I'm selling some stuff online. I need to kind of brush up on this topic. I need to learn a little bit more, you know. We're seeing folks come in and really take a liking to a lot of our knowledge that we're including to our documents as well. So yeah, it's a very valuable resource, and really hope that everybody gets to take advantage of it. And again, to sign up for our platform, please just click sign up here, and then you can just click on member of one of our member or customer organizations, and then sign up through there. We'll get you your account ready to go.
How many of you have already done this? Just Christine? Good job, Christine. Gold star to you. Guess what's homework tonight?
And also, if anybody has any questions about this, if you want a one-to-one onboarding session as well, more than happy to provide that. If you have any specific questions relating to contracts, or you're trying to look for something, feel free to just reach out to me. Kelsey, you've got my email information, and I'm sure that'll go out as well. But I'll be able to answer any questions you have regarding the platform. Adam is one of our affiliate lawyers, so he'll be able to answer any questions that you have. Let's say you want to take any of these contracts to the finish line, and you want to kind of take them to fruition, get some review done. And is more than happy to assist on that end, and Kelsey will be able to provide that email address as well. But other than that, I think I'm done here, unless anybody has any questions.
All good?
All right, doesn't sound like it. But thanks, everyone. I really appreciate you having us here. And yeah, so looking forward to seeing some signups come in.
Thank you so much, Thomas and Adam. We've really enjoyed having you here. The service that you provide entrepreneurs is invaluable. So we really appreciate you demonstrating the platform and answering some of our questions, Adam, around founders agreements. And I think we went a little off topic there, but you handled it very well. So I appreciate that as well. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate having you here, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Kelsey.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
So everyone, as you can see,